We're going, we're starting.
All right.
You just
I get very, very quiet, feeling awkward. No.
Well, I'll open with something. 37.
Yes.
Final Promise. I just interviewed everyone. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you enjoyed working with that film, and it was a great team, great storyline, some really tragic things that are going on right now around us that came out in it. So tell us a little bit about your role in 37, A Final Promise.
It was very small. It was a passion project, Randall Battenkoff's passion project, based off of a book by Guy Blues. And it deals with, for those of you who don't know, it starts out, you think it's a story of this rocker that's gone through something in his life as a child, and he's sort of feeling guilty over it, and he's made a deal with himself to kill himself when he's 37. And then he meets someone and falls in love and finds out she's suffering from ALS. And so I came into the project quite late, and I knew Scotty Thompson, who was playing my sister. I didn't know Randall at the time. But I signed on just because my husband's, a couple of years earlier, about 2 years earlier, my husband's uncle had passed away from ALS. And it was something that I thought, you know, I liked the story between the sisters. And so I signed on to it, and coincidentally, I mean, we shot this a year and a half ago, and coincidentally, it came out in limited release on video on demand, and also in New York and Los Angeles, right around the time when all this Ice Bucket Challenge thing happened. So was not planned that way, but you know, when you lose somebody from any disease, but you know, disease that not a lot of people know about. I actually didn't really know too much about it before our uncle got diagnosed with it. So yeah, it was a very, very, very small movie. I think Randall, you know, co-wrote it, produced it, directed it, edited it, starred in it. I think it's his own money in it. And I think it turned out really well for what it was. It's the only show that I've ever been in that, I mean, we were doing our own makeup. The clothes are it's my own clothes. I think we lost our makeup artist halfway through. So we're trying to do the wedding scene, and we're in these teeny tiny trailers and trying to do, you know. But I was amazed that when it came out, and Randall came over to show it, to screen it for me, how well it came together. And it just shows that sometimes, you know, you put enough behind it, passion behind it, that it can turn out well.
Thank you. I thought it was really well done. Thank you. Randall, I thought, did an amazing job on all the different hats
Yeah,
that he put on for that.
he did. He had a lot to do for it.
Well, about Ascension, first of all, are you finished filming that yet, or?
I just wrapped.
Okay.
Flew in last night from Montreal. They're not quite fully wrapped yet. They've got a couple more days next week. Mostly second unit stuff that you've missed shooting along, or some action or insert shots and stuff. But we're pretty much wrapped, yeah.
Can we look forward to seeing the captain's wife in pretty much every episode? Is she a major character?
It's such a large ensemble cast. Deandra, my character, isn't in it that much in the beginning, but it really sets up the show. I mean, there's so many characters to introduce, but she does come in a. You can hopefully see where it's going. Definitely is more prominent in the later episodes, and the biggest sets I've ever been on. Massive sets, which in one way, you know, we walked onto the sets and they're incredible. Like, our commons area is 4 stories tall, and filmable stories, but that in turn actually causes some problems in filming because there's no elevators in the building. So they got to get dolly grips, you know, dollies and cameras and everything up, and they have to make their own elevator outside of the sets to bring them up. And you got to light the whole thing. Like, if you see through the commons, you have to light 4 floors of things, you know? And then also, quite often when you have a set like that, you'll have, or a set with a big inner courtyard area type thing, you'll have that set then once you cross the threshold, like into a door, into a room, that's actually another part of the studio that's all just box sets where you can remove a wall because you need this angle or whatever. We don't have that. Everything is built. So we live in this, so when you go in there, you have to work in the confines of that room. So it's taken quite a long time to film. But, and then we also have another studio that's half an hour away that again is massive. So yeah, I'm excited for people to see it. It's beautifully, Pierre Gill, our DP, is extremely talented, pure artist in the way that he will not move on until he feels like he has the light right. Much to the chagrin sometimes of the producers, they're like, we gotta go, you know? But it's a great cast. The cast really gets along, has a huge family environment already. So we'll see. It's an interesting premise, interesting story. But it's a story where you think you know one thing going into it, and then there's some reveals that we can't tell y'all about. And then, so you'll get a big reveal first episode or two in, and then you think you know what it's about, and then by episode 4, you're getting another reveal and another hint, and by episode 4, 5, and 6 they really move at a quick pace, and a lot is revealed and a lot is at stake. So it's definitely a lot of layers that I can't say what they are. But
I'm curious as to if it's something that started in the 60s and it's going to go off in a different cultural direction than the folks back on Earth. Is that something where it kind of got stuck in one place, like with regard to fashion and things like that, but maybe branched off in some unique ways? Like what were some of the ways that the culture is different from Earth?
Well, it launched in '63, and there hasn't been really much communication with Earth. There's no communication with Earth now. This is 50 years later. And a lot of the people on the ship were born on the ship. My character, for instance, was born on the ship. And so I think it evolves like, you know, we haven't gone through, you know, it definitely has a little bit more of a, jokingly say, Mad Men in space, but it's not that. I mean, there is a 60s vibe to the clothing, to the hairstyles, there's more sexism, there's more, you know, male roles and female roles. There's a little bit of racism, although it's not on the nose, but it's just sort of a little bit the norm type thing. Where things are evolving and changing, but I think because you have a smaller group of people, 600 people, it moves and evolves at a slower pace than it would on Earth. And, you know, also on Earth, especially in the later years and with technology, we communicate with people all over the world. And it's normal now. But even 10 years ago, you didn't necessarily, or 20 years ago, you didn't. So if you take a small town, they tend to move, they evolve slower. They hold on to things longer. You know, I come from a farm town in Alberta, and things just, you know, I think people hold on to things more. And I think because, you know, the people that launched the ship, the adults in '63 that were on the ship, their morals and values and stuff may be more a little bit 50s and 40s even. So that's what the people are still dealing with, and so they're starting to make out, isn't wrong. They're starting to change, and I think the younger generation, like the teenagers on the ship now, there's something that everybody goes through is called the crisis. You know, teenagers trying to find themselves and whatever, but it's when they realize for the first time that they really don't have a choice in this life. They can't decide they want to be a mountain climber because there's no mountains to climb. They can't decide they want to be a marine biologist. They have to fit into the society on the ship. And it's a big struggle for a lot of the teenagers. But I think this generation of teenagers is getting worse. I think the more distance that you get from the launch, the easier it is for people to start questioning and, questioning basically.
Is this intended to be a kind of bookended mini-series,
or is there the possibility that there will be future seasons?
There's a possibility that there'll be more. We don't know at this point if it'll just be a few more to fully realize the story, or if it could go longer. I think that depends on how well it does. But I think my guess would there'd be some more to come back. But at this point, we've just done the first 6, and yeah, I would guess that we'd come back and at least do another 4 or 6.
Do you feel that Battlestar was an influence on Ascension? Like kind of in the way that it had a more maturing with the sci-fi audience?
I think, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some parallels to, and even the way that it's kind of being structured, you know, mini-series form, that the story's wrapped up, but it was, you know, there was an opening to go further. The story's completely different, so I can't really compare it in that terms, in terms of story. But yeah, it is more of a, it's more of a drama, you know, human drama about the characters, about the situation they're in. And again, it starts a little slower, and then it really starts to evolve, and a lot more factors start to come into it. So I hope people stay around for the end too, to really see what's all the twists and turns that Philip Levins, who created it, he's, you know, when we started filming a couple episodes to go on, like, but I don't understand, so what's happening here, what's happening there? He has it all in his head, and he's sort of like Ron Moore in that way. It reminds me, again, different storyline completely, but any question you ask him, it's up there. He's thought about it, he has an answer for it. He's really delved into the kind of what it was like in the early 60s to maybe launch a ship. You know, it was loosely based off of a real project, a military project called Project Orion, about sending nuclear propulsion ships. And, you know, so the possibility was there. At the same time, it's still a TV show, that there's gonna be some liberties taken, and I think people have to also enjoy that fact that it is still for entertainment. It isn't a factual, it's not a documentary on Project Orion, you know. But a lot of people didn't even know. I didn't know about Project Orion because it was classified. And some of the stuff became unclassified very briefly, and then it became classified again. So it's still classified. So there's very little. I actually Googled it, and there's a 8-minute video from the son of Dyson, who was one of the scientists that worked on the Orion project. And his son has done this 8-minute little video with some like sketch drawings and things. So to me, it was really interesting to see that 8-minute, but you can almost find nothing online about it. But Philip has obviously studied a lot more about it, and delved into it, and spoken to people. So it's fun to me that it is based off of something. It's so hard to not tell you. I can't. But yeah, there's a twist in it that really kind of drew me from the first time reading the script.
You feel like he keeps some of that information from you to keep you in the dark for your character? Like, is that sort of the method, or?
I think there is some of that, because, yeah, my character doesn't know some of the twists and turns that are coming up. My character doesn't know. So it started to kind of get on my nerves a little bit, like, man, I want to know. And then I thought, okay, well, chill with it and go with it and see. But, you know, it started with Battlestar with number 6. I didn't know if she was a figment of his imagination, if there was a chip in his brain, if she was an angel. I didn't know. And Ron didn't tell me. And so very quickly I had to just go, okay, just let it go. So I've kind of had to do that a little bit with this.
What,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what are you looking for in your parts, and what drew you to this role in particular?
In this role in particular, I'm more drawn to the potential of where she's going, more so than where she is.
Mm-hmm.
And after talking with Philip about it, I'm intrigued by what he says is going to happen. She starts out very slow, not slow, but very light.
Okay.
And so there was not a lot to sink my teeth into in the beginning. And then there's some sort of dynamic with her husband that there's a little bit of House of Cards with Claire and Frank. Yes, thank you. And I just keep seeing Kevin Spacey. And then there's a little bit of George and Martha, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Not to that extreme, but so we got one scene that goes a little bit more there toward the later episodes, which was really fun to do. But there are a couple, so I was drawn in by their relationship, which you just start getting hints at. But they're the power couple on the ship, and their love-hate relationship. And people are matched, genetic matching. So you don't marry for love, you marry for, it's basically arranged marriages, but the computer selects who needs to get married. Computer allows who can have children, because you can't just free for all of who wants to have children, because the ship can't support that many people. So there's a birth list, and my character gave up her right. Her and the captain gave up their right to be selected for the birth list, so that they could be in a position of staying in power. So there's a lot of vulnerability. She's a very tough character, very strong character, which I'm drawn to. But there's also a lot of pain and vulnerability in her. And I always like those type of characters that you think one thing, you think they're this strong, in the beginning you almost think she's like this Machiavellian type character, and then you start to see some of the things inside of her that make her tick and makes her keep going. So that's kind of what I was drawn to, and I like the idea of the story. I liked Philip's version of what of his thoughts on where he wanted to go with it.
Speaking of strong characters, thank you first of all for doing some amazing roles for women and being a strong character. You choose some amazing roles, I think, for women, and I respect that. You and Katie seem to like bikes, and have a charity that I think donates each year to something different. Could you tell us a little bit about the charity and how that works?
Yes, we have a company called Acting Outlaws. That's just Katie and I. But we are big bike riders, and we're also really good friends. And so we wanted to figure out how can we do something where we kind of mix our friendship, getting to hang out, and doing something good. And so our biggest project, and one of our first ones we started, was the La La Ride documentary where we rode from Los Angeles to New Orleans, and we partnered with the Gulf Restoration Network, and we had their text to donate campaign and everything. And the editing process is a lot harder than it was just us. It was us with one camera guy and one sound tech who doubled as the follow car driver, and we had a blast. The editing process was a lot harder than we thought, but we actually screened it for the first time. It's been available on our website for 2 years or something, 3 years. But we recently redid a little re-editing, and we're going to screen it again. We screened it up at the Tulip Ride, which was a ride for Red Cross and Humane Society up in Seattle, and we screened it for a couple hundred people. And it went over really well, so we want to try and do that again. And then we joined a ride in Wyoming. So we basically kind of join rides. This one was for Homes for Our Troops. And we're producing our own first ride this year, November 2nd. We're in mid planning mode of it right now. Our registration site's about to go live next week, possibly this weekend. And it's just a day ride, but that we've partnered with PATH, which is a wonderful organization in Southern California for homelessness, dealing with homelessness. And so PATH has come on as a partner. And so that's November 2nd, one of our favorite rides in LA that we do quite often. It's just a day type thing. And then we've also been part of the Keels Life Ride for most of the years, all 5 years actually. This year was the 5th year. I could only make it for a couple days, and Katie made it for a couple days. I rode from Detroit to Cleveland, and then from Cleveland to Niagara Falls in 2 days, and then took off. So it's, you know, we've done some calendars. We donated some money to AmFAR. The Keels ride is for AmFAR, and I think they've donated now over $1.25 million or something through the 5 years to AmFAR. So it's something that we have fun doing, and hopefully we can build it bigger as we go, and we'd love to at one point have a female motorcycle clothing line and donate some of the proceeds from that. But right now we're just having fun doing it, and we're about to shoot our next calendar. We've done calendar for the last 2 years in a row. We're planning the next one, but we have to be in the same city to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, both of you are great, and I enjoy every time I speak to both of you, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
You mentioned House of Cards. I assume that means you're a fan.
Yes.
What else are you watching?
Well, I wasn't watching House of Cards. You know, when it first came out, I was like, oh, everybody thinks this is great, so I'm going to watch it. And I did not like the first episode. I liked everything, but I didn't like their dynamic. I didn't like Robin Wright and Kevin Spacey's dynamic together. I found it very theatrical. I was like, I like when they interact with everybody else, so I stopped watching it. And then when Phil said that there was some elements of this, I was like, okay, I gotta watch it again. And I started watching it and immediately just went, I love this, and started I've watched all 2 seasons now. So, Breaking Bad, finished all that. I'm slow to the game. And so my husband and I started one show. We finally got Netflix. I know, late to the game, late to the party, I guess. And we'll have one show that we try to watch together. So it takes a long time because he also travels a lot. House of Cards I didn't wait for him because I'm like, it's for work. Sorry. And our new one is Orange is the New Black. That's what we're almost finished everything that they've done at this point. Yeah. But quite often we like different things. Like I like serial killer things, and my husband, he doesn't. He's much more, I don't know what he watches. Yeah, I've got just got The Auction with Mika Alan, screenwriter. I don't know if I should even say this. Maybe I shouldn't say it. I'm trying to get something going. Forget that I just said this. Trying to get a project going based off of Chelsea Kane books, Heartsick. I'm in love with those books. In love with the Gretchen Lowell character. I want to play her so badly. Trying to get that going. That's not watching, that's trying to play someone, play a serial killer. I don't know why I like playing serial killers, but I do. But yeah, that's, I guess Orange is the New Black. What else should I watch?
True Detective.
True Detective.
Oh yes, that's on my
Sure.
list. Yes, and I was just gonna watch it without my husband, not trying to do the group watching thing because it doesn't work out very well for us.
I think you'd like Fargo, probably.
Oh, I watched that.
Okay.
I taped it in the gym before I left, and I watched it every time I worked out. So yes, I got through that one, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm enjoying Red Donovan. Very good. Leah Schreiber's show.
I auditioned for a role in that this year. Didn't get it, obviously. I think I was
Screw
too
Ray
old.
Donovan then.
I won't watch them. Come on.
Trash.
No, it's a show I think I'd probably like. I think I was too old for the character. But.
That just made me think of something a little bit more superficial than some of the other stuff, but when you're talking about Claire and House of Cards, and of course you might even see someone dressed as Six from Battlestar Galactica out there in the iconic red dress.
Yes.
And because they're going to be playing with some 60s fashion, I assume, in Ascension, is your character going to have some glamorous
Oh my.
and some really great outfits and things like that? So.
Yeah. Almost to the point where my character is extremely glamorous. She's kind of the head hostess on the ship. She's the one that puts on, she takes care of the birth bliss ceremonies, the officer's lounge. She's they're kind of the king and the queen on the ship without being king and queen. It's the captain, but she actually wishes she could get her hands dirty more. She has to play the part, but I think one of her vulnerabilities is she feels that she doesn't really have a job that is essential. She says to the doctor character just recently, things are there's a lot of chaos happening in the ship. And she says it's nice to roll up my sleeves for once instead of putting on high heels. And as an actor, I love doing stunts. I love running around chasing the bad guys. I love doing all that kind of stuff. So it's a struggle for me as a person, as an actor, to just be in high heels and tight dresses. I start getting frustrated. I hate sitting in hair and makeup, and it takes about 2 hours every day to get ready. And I'm like, and the 60s hair. All the other girls have long hair, so they've got these cool 60s styles. And the hairstylist started making mine like Jackie O, like this helmet, like this, that doesn't move. Can we loosen it up? Can we, yeah. But lost track of the question, I'm sorry.
No, that went along right.
It went
Well,
along.
especially since did she come from sort of like the lower classes and moved her way up, right?
Yes, that was the next thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. She did grow up on the lower decks. It's the big class system, upper deck, lower deck kind of thing. I haven't seen Downton Abbey, but it's sort of that.
Upstairs, downstairs.
Upstairs, downstairs,
Yeah.
that's where, again, or this saying. And so she grew up in the lower decks, and she really, really wanted to get out of the lower decks. And so, I lost my train of thought again. She still wished she could have had a more essential role, but she doesn't want to go back to the lower deck. So she's going to do her job the best that she can do it, and she's also evolved her job a little bit from just being. She's realized she could get more information and help keep her husband in power, because there's some councilmen that are trying to take over the captain's seat. So she realized that she could get more information by trading favors. So she's turned some of her girls and herself, if necessary, into a way of getting favors. Yes.
Well, and for one more quick question. I don't want to take it.
No,
but-
go
okay.
take it.
I was just going to say it's interesting because the shows you mentioned when you kind of talk about your show, and I know there's a lot you can't say, but they tend to be more like House of Cards and Downton Abbey, less sci-fi. Do you think this is aimed at a sci-fi viewer, or is this a little more approachable for people who don't watch science fiction?
I think definitely in the beginning, it's aside from that it's on a spaceship, you might not necessarily think it's too far into the sci-fi genre, so to speak. A little later in the season, there are some other elements that come in that might pull a little bit more of that back in.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
But yeah, that starts coming in around episode 4, 5. 5, there's something big that happens, and you're like, even the rest of us, the actors, we're sitting around the table read for episode 5, and you know what a table read is?
Mm-hmm.
And there's the last scene in episode 5. What happens? We don't have episode 6. Like, he's like, you'll find out.
No.
I wanted to throttle him. I'm like, but we're, duh.
So can I ask, does it end on a cliffhanger in episode 6, or do we get a conclusion that won't leave us totally going
That's a good
crazy?
Ah, that is a good question.
You find out a lot.
Okay.
I won't lie. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. So, but you find out a lot. Like episode 5 ends on a cliffhanger, and then you find out in 6. But yeah.
You gotta leave possibilities open.
Yeah.
Yes,
More.
So
exactly.
some resolution, some questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I said I think it would have to come back at least
Okay.
for a little bit and to finish the story, because I want to know what's happening too.
I want closure in my shows.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Sorry if I babbled a little bit. It's hard to
No.
describe when. Yeah, describe.
I can't wait till I watch it and I'm like,
Yeah.